Tonight, you'll try to remember something, a name, a password, a fact for tomorrow's exam, and by morning, most of it will be gone. That's not a flaw in you, it's a feature of your brain that's over 2,000 years old. And the strangest part is this: the people who figured out how to beat it weren't scientists in a lab, they were spies. Cold War intelligence officers needed something most of us never think about. They needed to memorize entire fake identities, names, birthplaces, family histories, cover stories, all of it perfect, all of it instant, with a single mistake, meaning capture or worse. So, the CIA didn't invent a new way to learn. They dug up a method that was already ancient, and once you understand where it came from, you'll never look at studying the same way again. Here's the strange part: your brain is not built to remember facts. It never was. For most of human history, there were no facts to remember: no dates, no vocabulary lists, no pin codes. There was only the forest, the river, the cave, the herd. Your ancestors' survival depended on one skill above all others: remembering where things were, where the water source was, where the predator was last seen, where the tribe made camp. Spatial memory is ancient. It's wired deep into a part of your brain called the hippocampus, and it's almost effortless. You could walk through your childhood home right now in your mind and describe every room without trying. Could you recite the periodic table with the same ease? Probably not, and that gap is the whole secret. Around 500 BCE, a Greek poet named Simonides of Chios was performing at a banquet when the roof collapsed, killing everyone inside except him. The bodies were crushed beyond recognition. Grieving families couldn't identify their dead, but Simonides could. He remembered exactly where each guest had been sitting, and from that single detail, he was able to name every victim. In that horror, he noticed something remarkable. He hadn't tried to memorize where people sat. His mind had done it automatically, because it was organized as a place. That observation became the foundation of what we now call the method of Loci, or the memory palace. The idea is simple, almost embarrassingly so. You take information you want to remember, and instead of trying to hold it as abstract facts, you attach it to a physical location you already know: your house, your commute, your childhood street. You place each piece of information at a specific spot along that path as a strange, vivid image. Then, to recall it, you simply walk the path in your mind. Your ancient spatial memory does the heavy lifting your modern, fact-based memory was never built for. This is exactly what intelligence agencies trained their officers to do. A CIA handler memorizing a cover identity wouldn't repeat a list of facts to themselves like a nervous student. They would build a palace. The childhood bedroom holds the fake birth date. The kitchen holds the mother's maiden name. The front door holds the cover job title. Walk through it once, twice, and the entire fabricated life becomes as retrievable as your own memories. Not because the brain got smarter, because the information finally spoke its native language: space, not text. But there's a second piece to this puzzle, one that has nothing to do with palaces and everything to do with time. In the 1880s, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus ran an experiment on himself that still shapes how memory is understood today. He memorized meaningless syllables, hundreds of them, and tracked exactly how quickly he forgot them. What he found became known as the forgetting curve, and it's brutal. Without reinforcement, you lose the majority of new information within a single day. Not a month, a day. Why would evolution build a brain this leaky? Because forgetting is a feature too. A brain that remembered every sensation, every face, every meaningless detail forever would be paralyzed by noise. Your ancestors needed to forget the exact texture of yesterday's grass and remember the location of the one watering hole that mattered. Ebbinghaus discovered the mechanism. But he also discovered the exception. If you revisit information right before you're about to forget it, the memory doesn't just get refreshed, it gets stronger and the next forgetting curve becomes flatter. Repeat that at the right intervals, spaced further and further apart, and something you'd normally lose in a day can live in your memory for years. This is spaced repetition, and it's the second half of what the spies were doing without ever naming it. A cover story reviewed once and never again is a cover story that collapses under interrogation. A cover story reviewed at increasing intervals, always right at the edge of forgetting, becomes permanent. Combine that with the memory palace, and you get something extraordinary. Vivid spatial storage, reinforced at exactly the right moments. Not more effort, better timing. There's one more layer, and it explains why cramming, the thing almost every student does the night before a test, barely works at all. In the 1990s, a psychologist named K. Anders Ericsson studied what actually separates experts from everyone else, famously through his research on violinists at a Berlin music academy. The best performers didn't simply practice more hours, they practiced differently. They targeted their weakest points, pushed just past their comfort zone, and got immediate feedback on every attempt. He called it deliberate practice, and the finding translates directly to memory. Passive review, reading the same page over and over, barely moves the needle. Active retrieval, forcing yourself to recall the answer before you're allowed to check it, is what actually rewires the brain. Struggling to remember isn't a sign you're bad at this. It's the mechanism itself. So picture what a spy actually did the night before a mission. Not highlighting a manual, not rereading a dossier 5 times in a row, hoping it would stick. They built a palace out of a place they already knew by heart. They loaded it with strange, vivid, almost cartoonish images, because the brain remembers the bizarre far better than the boring. They tested themselves without looking, forcing the retrieval, feeling that uncomfortable blank moment where the brain searches. And they came back to it again and again at intervals timed to catch the memory, right as it started to slip. None of this required more intelligence. None of it required more hours. It required working with a brain shaped by 100,000 years of walking through physical space, not sitting at a desk memorizing symbols on a page. Your ancestors weren't dumber than you. They were better matched to the tools they used. You're not. Try it, just once. Pick 5 things you need to remember tomorrow. Walk your childhood home in your mind, or your current apartment, room by room. Place one strange, oversized, absurd image of each fact in a different room. The stranger, the better. A giant, glowing exam date sitting on your bed, a dripping, wet vocabulary word hanging from your shower head. Walk through it tonight before you sleep. Walk through it again tomorrow morning. Don't reread your notes. Try to recall first and only check afterward. You'll notice something unsettling. It works almost immediately. And it works because you were never actually bad at remembering things. You were only ever using the wrong kind of memory for the job. Tonight, you'll try to remember something. This time, don't fight your brain. Build it a place to live.